Randall Hansen? Jeff Stephenson? Mary Menterline?
Here.
James Wolfe? Here. Andy Udell?
Here.
Alan Luckett?
Here.
We do have a quorum for this evening, so we can continue with our meeting. Number 3, any comments from the public that we received, Brian?
Nope.
Okay. Number 4, this is going to be moving quickly, I think, tonight. Minutes of our past meeting on May 17th. Do we see a motion or any concerns with the minutes? May I have a motion for the minutes?
Move to adopt the minutes.
Thank you. From Scott. Seconded?
I'll second.
Seconded by Andy Udell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes. Item number 5, discussion of City Council Policy Statement number 88. Brian?
All right, so Council Policy 88, and we did provide kind of a cover memorandum from the City Manager's Office as well as the policy itself. But Council Policy 88 is basically the code of conduct for our volunteer boards, commissions, and committees in the City of Janesville. And so we wanted to provide this updated, very recently, just last month, revised council policy to everyone. And then on the last page of the policy, there is basically a signature certificate that each board, commission, and committee member is asked to sign, basically acknowledging that you've received and read the code of conduct. It's the city manager's office that administers the policy and kind of shepherded it through the city council in the most recent revision. And so if there's questions or concerns that anybody has, I'll do my best to answer them, but I may have to reach out to the manager's office for guidance in that regard.
Are there any major changes to it that we should really be aware of, or pretty standard otherwise?
My recollection of most of the discussion at the council level was with respect to kind of they call it the sanctions portion of the policy statement, which basically gets into what happens if there's a violation of the policy, I'm not entirely familiar with how the discussion proceeded, but what you see in front of you is what the council ended up voting to approve last month.
Okay. I just don't know if they added some other extra thing in there that we should be made aware of, or if it looked pretty standard to me when I looked through it, but.
Yeah, I was at the meeting, and I can't remember what the what the crux was for it or any concerns. I think it was something kind of minimal, if anything.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Brian on?
So if everyone is able to go ahead and sign it tonight, that would be great. Otherwise, if you haven't had a chance to review the policy yet and you want to take a little time to do that and maybe drop that off, or I think bringing it to the next meeting is an option as well.
Do they need our physical signatures, or if somebody took it home, could they email it to Tara or you?
That would be fine too, yeah.
Okay.
A scanned email is fine. Yep, I see here at the end of the cover memo, there's an indication that they'd like these back by the end of July. So if everyone wants to take some additional time to review it, you're more than welcome to do so. Or, like I said, return the statement tonight is an option as well.
All right. Again, any other questions for Brian on this? No? All right, thank you, Brian. Where are we now? Next, discussion of Tallman Arts Festival, coming up August 6th and 7th. I think last year we had a nice ability to staff the tables. I wish we were a little further with our historic markers, but other things have kind of come into play when we were showing those to people last year at least. They were very impressed or interested in them at least. Hopefully we can do the same and have some people at the table if possible. And usually it's a couple hours. I know I was able to do at least a morning shift. Andy did a shift. I think Jeff did one. Alan, did you do a shift as well? You don't need to be there the whole day, maybe a couple hours if possible. Just think about it, let us know. We got some time still to go over it. Last year we were right in front of the front doors of the Tallman House, so it's easy to get in and out of if we need to, if we need to leave early or something like that too.
Is it a 2-day event? It says 6 and 7.
It is.
Yeah. They moved it to
It's a
2-day.
change from last year to this year. You know, in the past, this had been a one-day event. The goal of the Historical Society this year is to make it more of a weekend-long event and activity, and so it is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. And that's one of the principal reasons why I had asked Tara to put this on the agenda for this evening, is just to clarify for the commission that this year it is a 2-day event. We have not signed up for it yet. We wanted to make sure that the commission was still amenable to being able to staff the booth for the extra day.
I have a quick question on that. What is the history of us being at the festival itself?
We've been there. I'd say when you talk, bring your microphone a little
Oh,
closer.
excuse me, sorry.
That's all right. But we have somebody who does closed captioning on the other end, so they like to be able to hear us. So shout out to our closed captioner. But yeah, it seems like it's been pretty consistent every year participating. And it depends on how many of us have the time available to us, depending upon what shift it is. It could be, based upon this, we got 7 hours one day and 6 the next. So I don't know if you want to end up doing, like a 2, a 3, and a 2 on one day, and then just like 2-hour shifts the next day, unless somebody wants to do a 4-hour one. I myself, I'm possibly playing a concert on the 6th in the afternoon, so I probably would prefer to work the morning if it were that day, and if not, I could always put in like half the schedule on Sunday. So that's where my availability is.
So I guess my question was more like, what is the history of us as a commission having a tent and set up at this event? Like, what is I wouldn't say incentive, but what is the reason why we're there versus other, say, events in Janesville?
I think part of it was because of Tim
Okay.
From the Historic Society. And second off, it was just to show our aspect of the historic districts because we're on the grounds. I don't really outside of Tim.
Yeah, I think, other than, I don't think we really ever had a real connection with the arts festival per se, but the Tallman, the historical aspect of it, and then just the awareness and differentiation from the Rock County Historical Society versus the Janesville Historic Commission. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can also share, the different booklets on the different neighborhoods, because, a lot of people are not aware that there's more than just Courthouse Hill. That there's really 13 different districts that we have, and we have a lot of brochures for those districts. So, people get excited when they come through. So it's not like we're sitting there getting a suntan or,
Right.
actually participating with people. I think it's probably one of the more interactive ones.
Mm-hmm.
We could probably do like night out or fair if we wanted to. Think about it that way. I don't know if the city has a booth at the fair or not.
I don't believe so.
If they do, I'm not aware of it.
So,
We don't have to make crafts or anything like that.
No. No, and I've staffed the booth before. I just was kind of, when this came up on the dates, I'm like, what is the connection? And I'm thinking of all the kind of newer things. And then, obviously with May being, Preservation Month, focusing efforts maybe more in May, I was just kind of trying to figure out why this one was like the one shebang that happens every year. So
Yeah.
That's what we've always done.
Yeah, it's the way it's always been.
Oh,
You know
okay.
that
Yeah.
generation,
Yeah,
right?
you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can still, attend conferences and such, in order to further our education beyond what the group does here. So, I mean, you have the State Historical Society's conference, and then the one of Historic Commissions, which did it virtually this year. So there's other ways of us getting educated, but yeah, it's turning around and educating the community. If anybody on the commission has some ideas on how to get the word out more. I mean, we did postcards recently. We're constantly on discussion regarding, historic markers, and I mean, maybe it's time to do another documentary or something like that on local history. And I mean, JATV's right there, so they're easily one to use for resources. Plus, you have the Janesville Room as a resource, and the Rock County Historical Society as a resource, as if we wanted to go further and teach people more about some of the historic things. In the past, there have been programs that were done. There's one on historic architecture that we recently remastered and had broadcast quite a few times. So,
But I would honestly think it was because of Tim, truthfully, just to keep a connection between the Historical Society and the commission, and he,
Okay.
with him being on the commission, and he thought I would assume he thought it would be an appropriate spot for us to kind of show who we are to the community and whoever comes in. Outside of that, there's really no reason for us to be at the Arts Festival, unless we feel that we want to going forward. That's kind of up to us then, too.
I have a weird feeling like do you have any record, Brian, of how many of these things we've gone to?
I can try and find out when and how and why it originated, if you'd like. If you'd like, we can put this on the agenda for your next meeting and continue the discussion.
Yeah, I have this weird feeling like was it Mike Router, who was a writer. I feel like I remember running into him at one of the arts festivals when I went to film. So I feel like there was still a historic commission that was there at that point in time before. So who knows? Yeah, good question though.
Yep, very good question.
I think we should even address it next time too, because all the logistics of it. So, let's see.
So we'll table that for next meeting.
Yeah. Unless Miriam, you're thinking some different ideas and changes.
I mean, always, but
That's what I thought.
I mean, it's interesting now that it's 2 days, and having worked multiple years of it, it was. I mean, it is what it is.
It was a
now that
long
it's
one
2
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember setting up one day, and it was kind of one of those things, we've always rented this tent from this one guy. Well, the tent was like maybe 5 feet tall. And yeah, so again, I was just, when I read this, I was just like, I wonder why, because there are so many other things happening downtown. We have so many more outlets now, why this was, again, kind of the one standing thing that we've done, and like what that connection
Are we
was.
given that table, or do we purchase that for the timing, Brian? We're not charged.
Oh, that's a good question. I
wouldn't think so. I
The
think
nonprofits
we'd
were
be
given the
asked.
booth to
because
donation.
my recollection, and I don't have this in front, I don't have the info in front of me here. My recollection is that nonprofit entities like the Historic Commission are treated differently with respect to the registration fee from the for-profit artists that participate in the festival. But I don't know to what extent. I don't know if that
Makes
means just
sense.
a discounted fee or if it is free.
No, that's fine.
I'll ask that as well.
No, we could also do a farmer's market if you wanted to, and then you'd hit those people too that come through, and that's pretty busy. If you want to hit some more of the local people now that Festival Street's such an active place,
Just throwing it out there, of
Yeah.
maybe some other
No, it's
ideas of
Absolutely.
things to do and being out in the public. I know that we've talked about being more of a resource for the community than just kind of a naysay group that's like, no, you can't do that to your house kind of a thing. So, and I know there was some big, I think, Brian, didn't we have someone from the Wisconsin Historical Society come down and talk about those tax credits? And I think that one either was well attended or.
Yeah.
Bird Barn, yeah.
So maybe doing something more along those, informational, still having a presence, those things, and kind of almost hosting those things, informational quick ideas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else on the Tallman Arts? No? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to 7, discussion of Historic Preservation Fund subgrants.
About, I think it's going to be a week from today, Commissioner Udell and I have a meeting scheduled with some of our school district officials, as well as Wisconsin Historical Society staff, to further explore kind of the idea that we've talked about previously as a group in potentially pursuing a subgrant to list one or more of our historic school buildings in the National Register of Historic Places. We wanted to try and connect the school district folks directly with Wisconsin Historical Society to speak to some of the requirements that are associated with listing specifically a historic public building, public school building in the National Register, and have an opportunity for their questions to be answered directly by the state, as opposed to through, myself as a city employee. So that's scheduled to occur 1 week from today, and I would expect that at your next meeting we'll be able to provide much more information in terms of where the district is at and whether they would have a willingness to essentially allow us to pursue a grant for that purpose, or if we'll have to explore other ideas.
Any other questions on the subgrants? Everybody's understanding that we're just trying to get like one of the Roosevelt or Adams or Washington school on the historical placemat there.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the school will, I would assume the school would let us. I don't know why they'd say no to something like that, but who knows? Especially with the new is that going to issue it with a new superintendent coming in as well? Is that going to change anything?
Yeah, I don't think it's even to that point with
Oh,
him
okay.
yet. It's just, our contacts have been below him
Below
so
him?
far.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. All right, perfect. All right, any other things on that?
Yeah, I think the one thing you got to concern yourself whenever you do, the nomination at a national level is, preservation and not, and I think some of us that have gone to, the state conference, when they talk about it, if you want to add an addition on, you don't want to make it look like you made it out of the same darn bricks that the original was, because you don't want to, give a false, false
Perspective.
vision of, okay, well, that is part of the 1920 building. No, it isn't. It's a newer addition. So, yeah, there's some examples like that. But yeah, the question is, those things are the things you need to keep in concern, especially when you're talking to them next week. So, or discussing. That's all I have. Sorry.
No, thank you, Alan. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to number 8, historic district markers discussion. Are we up and running quite yet, Brian? We should really get rolling and get somebody else to help you with this, or?
I think so. That was going to be one of the things I was going to ask the commission this evening is, whether any one or perhaps more of you would be interested in taking more of a lead role, if you will, in terms of trying to bring this program to fruition. I'll do as much as I can and certainly act as a liaison to any, city staff as necessary. But it would, I think, be helpful to have that additional, assistance in being able to push this forward like we all want to. I did have an opportunity to sit down with our new Public Works Director, Mike Payne, who's a long-term city employee and, most recently headed up our engineering division as the city engineer. And so he started as our Public Works Director in the recent past here. And I wanted to, as I think I mentioned at some of our previous meetings, I wanted to get his perspective because I, as a planning division staff member, work in the Department of Public Works, ultimately at his direction through our planning director. And so I wanted to ensure that Mike, as the Public Works Director, was on board with kind of the direction that we're going with the program, and find out whether he had any concerns or anything. I didn't want us to start down a path only to find out then that there was disagreement on his part and direction that I would have to carry out then. And so we had a good discussion, brought him up to speed on kind of the long history of the program and where we were previously with the standalone markers and how we're moving in the direction of the street signage. And we talked about kind of the relationship that we've got in place with the Rock County Historical Society for purpose of holding the funds that are raised to implement the program. We talked about the potential for some, cost sharing between the funds that are raised by the Historic Commission and the city in the form of, either materials or labor, necessary to implement the program. And Mike asked me to kind of do some more groundwork with respect to taking a closer look at each of our districts. That would be our 9 residential districts, and beginning to plot out where these signs would be located in each of the districts. For example, we've got, plenty of districts where, the boundary of a district might be at the intersection, and, the west side of the intersection is in the district, the east side is out of the district. If the only street signage at that intersection is on the east side of the intersection, do we go ahead and, replace the signage with our historic district street signs, even though it would technically be physically outside of the boundary of the district? Is that problematic? Do we seek to potentially relocate the street signs to the west side of the street? Do we add, do we just add new signage to the west side of the street so you'd potentially have multiple street signs at the intersection? Is that potentially confusing to folks? So basically what we've done is our GIS, that's our mapping folks here at the city, have put together maps of each of the districts that I kind of anticipate going district by district, and whether it's going out to each of the districts or perhaps even using Google Street View, which I'm thankful for every day, to try and go through each of the districts and plot out where our street signs are located, and start to make some determinations, as far as the number of signs that we'd have to procure over the course of the program, and then start to make some of those decisions about placement or replacement of existing signs. It's information like that Mike asked me to try and compile before he would commit the city to being able to participate in cost sharing, like I mentioned. So to me at least, that's the next step, is to begin to put pen to paper in each of the districts and identify locations and kind of take it forward from there. And so that's potentially an area where I could use some assistance from, again, one or more of the commission members if you have an interest in doing it. Otherwise, I'm happy to continue and move that forward to the extent that I can. It's been difficult lately. We've been short-staffed since we had a staff member depart in February. We expect to bring somebody on board in July. I'll be supervising that person, so it'll take some time to bring them up to speed on all the other tasks and responsibilities that we have in the planning division. And that, I'm not complaining about that, but that's something that's going to take away time that could be spent, doing things like this.
If I may, the last time I remember looking at least the Courthouse Hill, it seemed like a lot of the property borders were in people's backyards. So hopefully, and I think that it was only Main Street. Really, there was like a small spot on Main Street where that could be the potential spot where do we put a sign here or not. So I'm not sure exactly how Columbus Circle's defining marks are on the backyard, because I think if anything, it'd be wise for us to kind of, we want to do all of the neighborhoods, but Columbus Circle should probably be up there along with Courthouse Hill as kind of like where we could do the research and give those two neighborhoods as examples to Mike Payne so he kind of has an idea of how we're moving forward with it. I mean, if it's a matter of tallying up how many signs, and I can't remember if we're discussing doing them on both directions, or if we're just planning on doing just like one street on each corner. I mean, we could go through and do a count, because I'm pretty sure every intersection has at least one sign. There wouldn't be any more than that, so, I mean, I could do some research for it, just go through and just kind of mark and circle all the spots that are like within those two districts, and then that'll give us an idea of number-wise, and all we'll do is count one pole. That way we can say, okay, well, if we just do one pole, or one street on that one pole, then, you know, here's where our dollar amounts are, unless we want to do both of them because it's, you know, to make it stand out more, but.
Is there a rhyme or reason where they designate where they want to put the street sign name, like the actual signage? Is there is there rhyme or reason, or is it just, this looks appropriate because it's the most visible in each corner kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if at some point there were, you know, calculations in terms of which street would have the higher traffic count, and maybe you want it oriented toward, you know, southbound traffic at this particular intersection or eastbound traffic at that particular intersection. I'm not sure if it was done that way, or if it was a matter of, you know, where the utility poles were at the time that the street signs went in, or perhaps stop signs or other controls. That's a good question. So, and that's part of the art to it, if you will, I think, is that when we do have those questions of, do we put it in, do we put it out? Is it, you know, a matter of relocating it across the street in certain instances, you know, where we'll have to have those discussions probably with folks in our engineering division and make those determinations. Because we do have folks on staff who kind of specialize, if you will, in traffic controls and traffic signage and the like, and so they would be able to, if they don't already have that knowledge as far as where the signs ought to be, you know, they would know where to go to get that type of guidance.
I'm going to throw out something here that I don't know how icy of a reception I'll get or not. So the money, I believe, all that was raised so far was from Columbus Circle.
Correct.
And I believe the history of this project is 10 plus years old. I mean, Brian, was it even going on before you came?
Well, technically, if you go to the zoning ordinance section that creates the Historic Commission, and I think that was enacted 35 years or so ago, one of the specific powers, duties, and responsibilities of the commission is to basically devise a system of markers for the city's historic districts. So I think it's been envisioned for a long, long time.
All right, so here's my suggestion even. Is Columbus Circle is the only one that's raised money. It's been going on with the markers ever since I even started here, and well before that. What if we just move forward with the Columbus Circle area with something similar to what the people donated the money for, and then go forward from there with whatever, if it's a big cheer for it, or maybe that's where the project dies and, well, they donated the money, so that's what they get. And I get you know, we wanted the cost sharing of it because they were worried certain districts wouldn't help raise as much, but it's one of those projects that's just killing me sitting here on the agenda every single time, year after year. So I guess I'm not afraid to be the one to say it, where I want to either do this or move on.
Yeah, I think by using Columbus Circle as an example, it's not really a through street area, so.
It'd be minimal signage.
Yeah, and it'd be more for that neighborhood and kind of personalizes it, and people would probably appreciate it.
It's like building a building. Sometimes you got to start it to get the money to come back in.
And I think from original documents, it was maybe 3 markers in there at the 2 different, well, I guess there's 3 different entrances.
Five tops, I think, is what we kind of think.
Yeah, it was right along that line,
Yeah.
so.
So are you making a motion then, Andy, or are you just making a suggestion to the board to talk and think about it?
I'd be
And put it on
curious.
the next meeting again?
Yeah, I'd be curious for more discussion, or if we want to think about it.
Okay.
And then go forward from there.
I would fall in line with you, honestly, but I would like to get everybody else's thoughts if they want to think about it till next meeting too. That's not a problem either, so.
The only thing I would say is, still playing devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
So we do Columbus Circle, and then they're like, woohoo, but then they start seeing, say we keep going, and they see the other signs, and they're like, well, we like that better. Would we give them the option of,
That's,
like, the entrance sign, like, you know, because I think that's really the only place that they have, like, the street signs, right? Is at the
There are
entrance.
That was the
there are
original
signs in the
proposals.
circle too.
Are there? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a unique discussion right there, because each historic neighborhood has its own unique character. You You know, so it would be an interesting thought too with the cost aspect of it, but I would say we cross that bridge when we get there with it.
Yeah, I think it just needs, we need to kind of follow the theme in which we were looking at, which was just taking the existing good old green rectangle and then printing it as a white one with information on it saying historic. So that way we're not doing some kind of giant round stop sign or something that looks a little, you know, I don't know, expensive to produce, especially now that the city's got the capability of printing up signs. And I think probably the expense is the format in which the metal is cut. You know, I mean, if we want something decorative with a crazy pattern to it, then yeah, we're gonna have to order something. But if they're gonna replace existing,
Yeah, and that's what we originally moved away from the round ones, was just the sheer cost of all of those documents.
I mean, I didn't like that one as well because I do live in a historic district, and where was it going to be? Like in my district, like I have 2 cross streets that I look at, so I would like to see, you know, selfishly see that on a road that is frequently traveled. So instead of having a random one in my district somewhere. But yeah, just playing devil's advocate, if Columbus Circle was they originally wanted, but then possibly didn't know the direction we planned on going.
I don't think they knew what they just wanted designation. I don't know if they actually knew what they wanted for signage from my gathering. It was just the commission had come up with an idea.
I'd have to ask Mark Bobzine again, because he lives in that district and he was on the historic commission with it, but I believe he took that mock-up to them. And, you know, I think most of the people would understand if things changed. But on the same token, it's, hey, we donated the money for these signs. You know, like, I think how many people asked us at the last Tallman Arts Fest?
We had a good number, actually.
You know, like, I donated for this, but I'm getting this. And
well, then maybe what we see is we have that discussion with Mike Payne regarding the replacement of just the street signs themselves, and then see if that money can be held in case we want to end up putting in, you know, one sign on a corner or main entrance way. You know, and then will that homeowner be okay with that sign being on their easement?
And that's a good point. That that was and has been part of the, I think, long-term intent by the commission, is that even when we were talking about doing standalone signage in each of the districts, that in addition to that, at some point down the road, there would be in each of the districts in some central location, a park or other public place, where there would be perhaps a larger plaque or sign with some additional information, you know, not only naming the district in which, you know, you find yourself, but also maybe providing some basic information on the significance of the neighborhood, the years that it was developed, the architectural styles that you find within it, the reason why the neighborhood was developed. You know, if, for example, we had a district that was home largely to GM employees when GM expanded in a certain year, you know, that would be an example of something that maybe one of those centralized markers would provide. And so that has been part of the commission's long-term desire and intent. And, you know, hopefully, if we can begin to delineate the districts by even starting out with just street signs, my own hope was that that would create some interest and momentum on the part of the residents that we've got, and maybe a greater appreciation for the districts that we have, and hopefully lend itself to some of those other activities like the centralized markers or, you know, whatever else folks want to do.
I'm happy to jump on and help you, Brian, with this and go forward with Mike and stuff too. Anything else on district markers?
Columbus Circle's a good place to get the ball rolling on it.
I think that's the only spot to really get the ball rolling. It's minimal. It's money's there already for us.
It's their money.
It's
right?
their money on top of it. Correct. And well, I'm assuming over 99% of it's theirs. Maybe, possibly somebody else, but I doubt it from the sounds of it. Perfect. So it may come off of the agenda at some point for you, Andy.
hey, I think I've only got a couple years left.
See? All right, on to topic number 9, Historic Commission announcements. And just remember, these announcements are limited to member activities, memorials, non-political community activities. Discussion of matters related to government businesses is prohibited. Any announcements?
Actually, in July at the Oak Hill Cemetery, there is, I believe, Brian, did you share this with us way back when about the?
Yep.
Workshop?
Yeah, the workshop, yeah, so I couldn't think of what it was there, but that is coming up for anyone that's interested, so.
Yep. And if you need, I know they got signage in the cemetery if you go.
Good, okay, good.
About it as well, too. I don't remember the dates, even though I was just in there the other day.
No, I was trying to find it here on my calendar and I cannot, but, July 9th, Saturday, July 9th, so coming up there. We'll have one more meeting till the 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Anybody else? I do have one announcement. Diana and Kevin Lasaro got back to me. They are going to be in town starting Thursday through July 4th. I wish they could have stayed one more day for us, but they have to get back to Vegas, they said. So,
With that being said, do we want to continue to wait to make the presentation until they are in town? Or would the group prefer that we, go ahead and print the certificate and I guess check in with Jeff on the frame and perhaps arrange for it to be mailed to them or perhaps even given to them here at City Hall? I mean, I'd be happy to facilitate a photo op if any of the group would like,
I would,
when the folks
I
are
think
here.
I'd like to run that way, Brian, honestly, truthfully, if we can get a photo up with them, since, and, it will be on Jeff. I mean, technically, it's a nice frame, but I know what you guys print the commemoration on is nice paper too. It's not like cheap, standard office paper. I think it would be nice to be able to still physically present it to them somewhere in City Hall. Like I said, they were pretty wide open on the dates, that's the 23rd to the 4th. They're leaving bright and early July 5th, she said, so. But at least they're in town, and we can do that for them as well. So yeah, if Jeff's got the frame ready to go, that'd be awesome. But if not, I think at least to present it to her, they would appreciate that without a question. So I'll get back to her. I will CC all of you guys in the email back to her, just saying, hey, what's the best date for you while you're here? And whoever can make it, and we'll see what we can do to
and then
give them that reward.
Yeah, I'd suggest just to reach out to the city manager's office and just make sure that they post something stating that we might have a quorum of the historic commission. That way, if 3 of us can make it, if 2 of us can make it, if the whole group can make it for the presentation and just for a photo op, then we do it that way.
All right.
I would take care of that once we have a date and time identified.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Any other announcements? All right. Seeing none, our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 5th, again up here in the same room. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Alan first, seconded.
I'll second.
Miriam seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? And we are adjourned at 5:39.